Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to The Division 2. Today we have got another news roundup. I want to cover a few important stories and topics, but as you could likely tell from the title, this is headlined by the fact that layoffs have hit Massive Entertainment, lead developer on the Division franchise. This is very unfortunate to hear, especially after some of the events that led up to this, which we'll talk about. So we'll break that down, as well as cover some of those additional news bits that I wanted to include. We'll get straight to it. As we do, have to give a major shout out and thank you as always to our channel members. Your continuous support directly enables me to continue making these videos, so thank you so much for that. I will have timestamps listed in the description for each of the stories that we're going to cover, but let's jump straight in. So let's begin with the biggest story here. Yesterday, January 13th, it was announced that layoffs are coming to Massive Entertainment as well as Ubisoft Stockholm. To fully understand this, we need to back up to October of last year when we got this press release from Massive. The second paragraph of this cites them enacting a voluntary career transition program, which many people took to mean that they were laying people off. At the time, and I've talked about this in videos since even quite recently, at that point forced layoffs did not occur. At least there was no evidence of that happening, including people I spoke to within Massive itself. What was happening over the past many months is that the studio was trying to reshape itself from having the capacity to handle 2 AAA games at once with both Avatar and Star Wars. Now they're going back down to just 1 with The Division 3, as well as a few smaller teams to handle projects like Survivors, the Division 2 core game, etc. And so what they said to employees at the time was that if they did not want to be at a Division-focused studio moving forward, then they have an opportunity to leave. Now, we thought and hoped that that would be the end of it, but as we learned yesterday, that unfortunately is not the case. As reported here by GamesIndustry.biz, Ubisoft is set to lay off 55 people across Massive and Ubisoft Stockholm. By the way, this article will be linked down in the description below in case you want to go and read the entire thing for yourself. Before we take a look at it though, the first important distinction that I want to make is that Ubisoft has 2 studios within Sweden, Massive and then Ubisoft Stockholm. Massive is the studio that leads development on all things Division, whereas Stockholm, to our knowledge, has no relation or connection to the Division. According to their website, their 2 projects are Scalar, which is a new technology that we've covered in a couple of prior videos, as well as an unannounced new IP. So, while layoffs are bad any way you slice them, and regardless of what studio we are talking about, I just wanted to clarify that 55 people did not get cut from just Massive and the Division teams. That figure is split between these 2 studios. Games Industry provided some additional detail within their article. The news follows the announcement of a voluntary redundancy program in 2025, which GamesIndustry.biz understands had some take-up, but additional steps were deemed necessary following a mapping of the future roadmap. So, just like I mentioned before, that program had the goal of aiding Massive in restructuring itself, but unfortunately, despite some taking up that offer, apparently Ubisoft deemed it wasn't enough. An internal email said that job losses were not related to performance issues, and the quote, long-term direction for the studios remains unchanged. Massive will continue work on the Division franchise and its expansions, with development continuing on the Division 3 and the Survivors extraction shooter mode for the Division 2. So, as they outline here, nothing is changing in terms of Massive's goals or direction. I had already seen some people yesterday saying, well, that's a wrap on Division 3. Massive, at least before the career transition program and these layoffs were enacted, had over 700 employees, to the best of my knowledge. And so while this is still very tragic, undoubtedly, the impact isn't likely going to be that severe when it comes to development on the Division products. Finally, the article notes the same email also stated that the studios are also working on an unannounced innovative tech project that will play a central role in the development of the Snowdrop game engine and Ubisoft's player network, Ubisoft Connect. This is kind of more intriguing than anything else. I'll be curious to see when and if we hear about this innovative tech project, which apparently is not Scalar, given that has already been announced. It would not shock me if whatever this is something for the Division 3 specifically, since that is the one big project underway at Massive. But aside from that, that is the news. It is tragic to hear that the gaming industry's layoff spree has found its way to Massive, which, while I know that people have their opinions on Avatar and Star Wars Outlaws, I still contest that the studio has some incredible rate of output and quality level for that output. These people do not deserve to be axed, right? Offering a voluntary program was one thing, and from what we heard, that seemed to have been handled relatively ethically. but this is of course something else entirely. And while I'm glad that this move doesn't seem to impact any of the Division projects that we are anticipating really at all, it was best put by Tom Henderson, who I first saw this news from, who said only Ubisoft could go into the 10th anniversary celebration for one of their biggest franchises and lay off some of the developers that worked on it the same week. To close this out, I'll simply say do better, Ubi, and my best wishes go out to anyone impacted by this, and I hope that they're able to land on their feet quickly. Alright, well beyond the headline story there, I did also want to cover a few more quick bits of news. Firstly, if you did not hear, a new event has kicked off in The Division 2, which is a collaboration between The Division 2 and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. That might seem like an odd pairing at first, however, Massive is the same studio that made Avatar, so that begins to make a bit more sense. But yeah, this was announced out of the blue back on Monday and then kicked off in-game yesterday, and especially given this is not advertised in-game on the seasonal event calendar, I just wanted to highlight it here so that you're aware of what it is and how to access it. This is the full infographic. It shows that the event runs until January 26th, so you will need to have all of the objectives completed by then, and what this involves is the standard project chain, right? A new project unlocks each day. There are going to be 7 in total, so completing each one nets you the reward listed for that day on this chart. Per usual, these will stack up for you to complete, so there is no need to do them on the day that they unlock, but obviously you just have to get them all done before the event wraps up on the 26th. So, assuming that you have access to projects on your character, then all you need to do is open up your map, tab over, and you will find the Avatar project right here. Each day's project should just involve eliminating named enemies for specific factions, so if you wanted to get this done quickly, then retaliations is one great way given the boss density. And I will say, even if you don't like the look of the cosmetic rewards, each day of this project grants you 3 exotic components, so that could be very well worth doing for that alone. Here's a look at the full Spec Ops RDA outfits that you unlock from this. I was fortunate enough to be offered the full set early via the Ubisoft Creator Program. So there's the full outfit, as you can see, plus 3 specialization weapon skins. This one is obviously for the flamethrower. This is the one for the minigun. And then my personal favorite is the TAC 50 here. It has a damn skull on the end of the barrel. I mean, that's pretty badass. So all of these rewards can be unlocked for free by progressing through the project chain. And if you didn't know that this event was here, now you do. Alright, and then for our final story of the day, I wanted to shout out and highlight a recent interview that was done with Julian Garrity, who is the executive producer of the Division franchise. You very well may have already seen coverage on this from other creators or just it circulating online. This went out well into last week. Unfortunately, I was out of town, so I could not cover it at the time. And I initially intended to do a full recap and breakdown of it once I got back, but I think a lot of you have likely seen this by now. In case you have not, though, I still wanted to mention it here as it is a very compelling interview if you're a Division fan. This was presented as part of the New Game Plus showcase, which was a new recent games showcase event hosted by a number of content creators. I'll have the full interview linked down below in the description. It is 23 minutes long. If you have the time, I highly recommend giving it a watch. And that's because it covers some pretty insightful stuff, like the status of development on the Division 2 survivors. Julian reveals that as of December, they had their 3rd playable build of it, which indicates that they're making good progress. He also confirms that the Battle for Brooklyn DLC last year caused the game to hit 500,000 players across all platforms, which finally helps me articulate my point about how Steam charts are not indicative of total activity for PC, let alone the entire game. And then the most quoted bit from this interview, he gave us a fresh update on the Division 3, and I'll just play it here so that you can hear it from the man himself.
So the Division 3 is in production, right? This is not a secret. It's been announced. It's shaping up to be a monster. I can't really say anything more than that, but this is within these walls in Massive. We are working extremely hard on something that I think will be as big an impact as Division 1 was.
Now, the majority of outlets ran with the beginning. Part of that, him saying that the Division 3 is shaping up to be a monster, and that is a good quote, no question. The only thing, though, is that we are going to have no idea if this is true or not for likely another 1 to 2 years to come, whenever we start getting trailers and gameplay. My biggest takeaway from this is at the end, with him stating that they're aiming for the Division 3 to have as big of an impact as the Division 1 did. And to me, that is all that I've wanted out of this game, right? The Division 2 on a technical level is a very sound game. It looks gorgeous, it plays well, but at the same time, it was very iterative, and it just did not have the same magic that the Division 1 did. So for the leader of all things Division to seemingly recognize that and state that they want the Division 3 to pack as big of a punch as Division 1 did, that gives me hope. Again, we'll have to wait and see if these words end up coming true, but it's encouraging nonetheless. And once again, I recommend giving the entirety of this interview a listen if this is the first you are hearing of it. It'll be linked down in the description. All right, my friends, well, that is everything that we have to go over for today. Obviously, this is all headlined by some very unfortunate news regarding layoffs at Massive, which is never something that we want to be hearing about or have to cover. I sincerely hope that anybody who is affected by those is able to find new work quickly, and that those remaining at the studio are not impacted too greatly. Yeah, it just sucks all around. I do hope that you found this video informative, though, whether it be on that story or anything else that we covered. At this point, I would love to get your thoughts on what we did talk about. What's your take on the layoff situation, or again, anything else that we talked about? I'll be curious to read through it down below. That's going to do it for me on this one, though. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you back soon. RogueGold. Ow. Oh! We just got a Ravenous! Haha! I might not be friendly. Let's go.
Coming to the Division 2.
Let's go!
And